opposition to the whole idea of technology in education is somehow very, very high in this group. And we wanted to understand what are the issues which is making technology as a kind of a villain in the whole educational scene. These are some of the points that we discussed. One is the whole question of definition. How do we define technology in the context of education? Because when we talk about technology, or especially in the context of education, we only see tablets, we see screens, we see online classrooms, we see mobile phones, so on and so forth. However, technology is not just defined by those screens and mobile phones and tab. Even a ballpoint pen is a technology. Okay, so we need to, before we start pouncing on the whole question of technology in EdTech, I think we need to redefine or broaden our definition of the word technology in the context of education. Point number one, a lot of people may want to add to this. The other main objection to the technology in EdTech sector is that technology is being imposed upon the people, on the students, on the schools, on the teacher. Okay, and it's like a very big agenda. Conspiracy type of a situation where corporates, government are imposing technology. By and large, it is true, but at the same time, there are several examples and very important cases in which there has been a social construction of educational technology being practiced. Okay. Now, what do I mean by social construction of education technology? Simply means that technology is being shaped by the communities and not the other way around, that technology is shaping the community. Communities are shaping the technology. For example, okay, if you look at the agriculture implement anywhere in this country, okay, you will see that the tools have been modified, redesigned by the local context of the people who are using it. So when people, the users actually shape the technology, it's being defined as a social construction of technology. And that social construction of technology, we all in a group support in to be deployed in education. That is point number two. Point number three is there is a lot of fear probably that is technology trying to replace the teachers. I think that is completely a misnomer. No technology ever can replace teacher in that sense. The teacher's role, as GN rightly pointed out, needs to get refined or reformed in the new technological realities, and that needs to be understood that the technology is not replacing any teachers, but it is forcing teachers to reform their way of practicing. One more point that came up from her is the fact that technology is not here in education context to recreate the classroom, the physical classroom scenario on the screen. That is not what we are looking at. If that is the reality, I think even this group is opposed to that. Okay, technology essentially is meant to enhance the learning and the teaching methodology. It's a pedagogical advancement tool rather than saying that, I was taking this class here in physically, now I'm taking it on Zoom. That's not technology for us. So that needs to be taken into account. One more thing that came up, I thought it was very, very important, is that technology should empower students to be a producer of knowledge rather than a mere consumer of it. Okay? What has been happening all around is that you take Byju's or any edtech startups, the students are being made a mere consumer of technology. Okay? Whereas we are saying that if there is a right approach to the technology, the students will be empowered to create knowledge. Okay? So the making students into creator is more important than making them into On the contrary, making them a consumer is a problem, which we need to understand. The last point is, I think as a group, we need to reassert, re-emphasize the use of OER, open educational resources, and open source. I don't want to elaborate on it because I'm sure everybody know about it. So these are the points we have discussed. Have I missed out anything?
A lot of the current technologies that we are using are actually being developed by communities and usurped by corporations. So for instance, the Android phone that we all use has actually been developed from the Linux kernel. And the Linux, as you all know, is a collaborative global project where thousands and thousands of programmers have written open source software. Chrome, the browser that we use, is derived from Chromium. Chromium again is built by people like you and me, ordinary community members, again usurped by corporations. 97% of whatever you do on the internet is driven by open source tools like Linux, Apache and so on, which again has been developed by ordinary human beings who are knowledgeable, who have spent time. What we don't therefore realize is that there is a huge community driving a movement saying that corporations or the state cannot control technology. We will control the technology and use it for how we would like to use it. And they are doing this through demonstrations. We think that the ownership of technology is the critical issue in education. If we as communities, as small schools like people like us or as educators can own the technology. So when we say own, which it means what? So for instance, in a small rural school like ours, the only reason we have been able to deploy so much technology is because somebody sitting somewhere else in the world developed something and released it in open source, which became easy for us to use in a small rural setup. Set up our own server, own and control the server. All the data of the students is under the control of the management of the school, which is the community and us. And we set up these platforms on our own because somebody has spent that effort releasing these technologies in the open source. Now, if these bunch of programmers, educators, scientists did not release these digital technologies, then we would have to use Google Classroom and Google Meet. We do not touch any proprietary software. And every software that the Adivasi child has experienced in the last 10 years of our school has been a community-driven software. Now, if a remote location like us can do this, then people in urban areas, people with much more access, have to reject the proprietary stuff like obviously the Baijus or the Vedantus or the toppers. But there is enough with a little bit of pushing yourself to demystify technology. You can say, I can set up a small server for my school. I can set up a chat. Yeah. So basically, we think that this group should be open-minded to seeing what is happening in technology and not dismissing it with the corporate controlled, proprietary, selfish, profit-making ones, which is one part of the game. There is another part. Yeah. Thank you.
We also express anxieties about the use of technology for surveillance. Strongly. And the other thing is that we raise this issue of ensuring the accessibility of technology for all marginalized groups. And wherever that is required, I mean, suppose something is not free, this should be the responsibility of the state. And also about the accessibility standards for print disabled or visually impaired people as set up by international forums, globally accepted standards, which are not followed even by the government of India, even though they are a signatory to that. These three issues were also discussed in
the free software and free and open source software and Wikipedia and things like that. These are not developed by any one government or or by the formal system or something like this. It's a community designed and developed technology. Now, this is an important point that none of the political parties have actually made an important thing, and this is something that has been a demand for quite some time, which is that the state is actually hand in hand with the corporates instead of the technology shaped by people. Okay, so that is a very important political point. I mean, going forward, I think we have to make sure that the state has a responsibility to protect people shaping technology and not proprietary technology, which is also, as Mishra was saying, it is also actually been appropriated and scavenged from the technology that is developed by people?
NEP has, NEP seems to be designed for big edtech companies, and there is a big danger there of, because they are talking about online, 60% online education from class 6 onwards. They are talking about use of technology for extremely disabled children. And so wherever actually the most, the strongest teacher is needed, they are talking about use of technology for weaker children and at number of places. So when we say technology, the way you are saying that the governments have to be asked some questions, that they should not be on the side of edtech companies, and the whole NEP is designed in a manner to support edtech companies. Secondly, this education minister, MHRD education minister Pradhan, he had immediately after pandemic, he had said, look how people used technology, and they are using pandemic also to push the big edtech companies. So
I think when we talk of technology, we have to be extremely careful about the huge inequalities that exist in the society. How many people have access to technology? Without that knowledge, if we romanticize technology and keep on recommending, I think we'll be doing great injustice to the tribal, Dalit, rural children. Forget about rural. Right in Bombay, during COVID, People's Union for Civil Liberties conducted a survey in the slums of Bombay. Only 0.8% of children had access to online education. Can you believe? I was asked to release the report, and the report comes out with this astounding finding that only 0.8% of the slum children of Bombay had access to technology. I think a group of this kind with a sensitivity, while recommending technology, we must recommend that accessibility and the type of inequalities that exist, how do we overcome them? I am not opposed to technology, but I am talking about the accessibility to technology. If that's not available, those who are better off will benefit from the technology, and those who are marginalized will further be marginalized. Then let us not do this historical mistake of committing another blunder of widening inequalities.
And this is a concern that I think all of us share, and therefore how do we not further deepen gender divides, caste class divides, which can be even more entrenched if technology is not accessible to everyone. That is one context. But my question also because I do understand that Michelle and all of you have been working in a rural Adivasi context as well. So what do you see in terms of possibilities of scaling something like this in the context of where we don't have that kind of bare minimum infrastructure to really ensure that people from different marginalized backgrounds or locations can access such technologies? So are these going to be only isolated examples, or do you really think that realistically these can be taken up on a larger scale?
With the advent of the mobile phone revolution in India, we have seen across cities, across rural areas, across tier 2 cities, as people realize that this is a technology that is going to change my life in terms of the information, communication, social interaction with my peers, people have adopted the technology on their own. No one is telling them that this is good for you, there is no propaganda behind it. It is just a technology. When someone realizes that this is my quality of my life, whether I'm a vegetable vendor or I'm a 12th standard pass Adivasi kid, this technology is going to enhance the quality of my life. They figure out the resources to procure them. That is the first point. The second point is that the Indian government has committed to providing high-speed Wi-Fi to 2.5 lakh Gram Panchayats several years ago. There is no movement or no critical mass to push the government to say that every Gram Panchayat in this country must have data connectivity today. It's a right. Data today is as much as a right as my right to water, electricity, energy, and so on. No one is fighting that debate, and access is then now being left again to private players like Airtel and Jio. in the small anecdotal evidence, but in the small tribal district that we have been working for last 10 years, there is increasing last mile connectivity. Younger and younger children are being provided with mobile phones by their families because the families realize that this is a tool for learning, communication and so on. And as soon as there is some kind of resource ability, a phone is bought for a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, 14-year-old. Pandemic pushed it. So another point she made rightly, yes, today they don't have access, tomorrow they are going to get access. Hook or by crook, Airtel, Jio or Bharat BSNL, they are going to get. Are we prepared to transform education when that data connectivity reaches, which may be 1 year or 2 years or 5 years? It should have already reached. There is an exclusion currently, but it is reaching, the communities will demand it, they are desperate for data. And data is the biggest issue today in a small rural area, and people do anything to get data. Whatever they earn, they will recharge their phone as young as possible. 4-year-olds are watching YouTube in a tribal village in Lahanu. So we don't need to be harping on the yes, there is exclusion, but it is reducing. The time and the gap is reducing. Who are the children making videos on TikTok? Rural children. Where is the data when it comes to TikTok? They are getting the data. If you look at, observe who is participating in the social media experiments, it is rural India is participating. That obviously means there is data. Obviously, from where is the child making the video? So I think we need to realize that they see advantage and value in data for improving their lives to whatever way, through entertainment and so on. What can education do to transform this? And how do we use the technology to now transform? Another point, she had a very, very important point, that we are not seeing technology as continuing the traditional way of education, that you were teaching on the blackboard, now you're teaching on the whiteboard, now you've got a projector. We're saying technology can completely transform education. It can break barriers of hierarchy. Who is the teacher? Who is the student? It can break barriers of time and space. I can learn from him today, I can learn from you today. Break barriers of space, time, geography, caste. And it can transform education. It is not just a new medium of learning and teaching. That was an important point she made, which didn't get across.
The problem is that if we just shun technology or keep them out, what are we doing? We are allowing that technology to be individualized or to be elitized. Where are we? Have we made? What are the kind of efforts that we have made to have community groups all meet in the panchayat office wherever there is connectivity and organize groups of 5? Even during COVID, it was possible. I mean, I had sent out posts, thing there that time. Is that it's possible that in the evening you meet in the community hall where there is a Wi-Fi connectivity and get students to do. It is the issue that we have allowed this technology to be highly individual oriented. Look at our Zoom meetings. Even if we have a hybrid meeting, each one will be having their own phone and looking like this, rather than being in a community. And we are allowing it to happen. Even in our groups, I'm talking of all the progressive, Zoom meetings that we have, they're all individual oriented. And I'm sure that we can design learning technologies, interactive technology, which the teacher then can use to further his reach and ability to teach better, to get resources, get the students to work on projects together. That as a collaborative thing, not as an individual. Right now they just give assignments and say that no, so-and-so student, this, you do this, you get individual marks. But what about the group projects which they can use using common connectivity? They can go to the panchayat office or they can go to a place, they can go to a cyber cafe and do it. Every place in Bombay, every place in most cities, even villages, has a cable distributor network. Each of those cable sites can be a server. And each of those cable sites, there is a technically competent person to run it. The children of all the shopkeepers in my neighborhood are all techies, but they are just doing Xerox.
If you ask yourself this question, that the increasing access to technology and increasing support from the Government of India to promoting technology, NEP 2020 is basically a digital education policy. It's not NEP 2020, it's not National Education Policy, it's a digital education policy. Prime Minister in fact said it precisely in these very words. If you go back to 1st May 2020, few months before the NEP was approved by the Central Cabinet, the Prime Minister is on record for saying the reason for bringing in NEP 2020 is to promote digital education. That's precisely his words. And this will make India a Vishwaguru. And within a matter of few weeks, Google transferred few $1 billion to Reliance. The connection between Prime Minister's claim that NEP will promote digital education, it will be around focus on digital education, immediately was converted into a transaction between Google and Reliance. You can imagine what is meaning. In the next 6 weeks, an international marketing agency put out this report that India is a great investment opportunity now with NEP 2020. And as a result of it, they calculated in the next 5 years there will be $15 billion education industry in India. How do you feel about it? Does it have any implication for all what we are discussing? I have my understanding. It is this digital education being promoted through NEP 2020 is an extension of the neoliberal attack on Indian education system. All the big edtech companies, including Baiju in India and rest of them all over, are now going to be controlled by the stock exchange market of New York, Tokyo, Beijing, London, everywhere. They'll be controlling the content of the knowledge. And we'll have no choice but to accept that content. Like, we have no choice about what is going to come on social media. Somebody else is controlling, not the people of the country. Is a global capital investment. Stock exchanges regulating the global capital. They are now controlling. Very few people have thought about it in our country. The ranking of universities, which we all are very worried now, we are not in the first 500, not in the first 200. Don't forget, ranking is also controlled by the stock exchanges and by the global capital.